Now, I wanted to get Bruce Schneier on because we ran an article. It was also in the Associated Press as well. TSA blocks security expert from testifying to Congress. Lawmakers slam agency for treating Americans like prisoners and cattle. We've now, in the last week, seen the ad they ran looking for imperious people. That means imperial, bossy, overbearing, dominant. And we've also, in the last week, had TSA caught running sex rings, child porn, rapes. And I saw a report that hundreds of people, over 200 people, have their bags robbed per week at JFK. Well, my daughter's 7 now, and she was newborn. I had to go to New York to do a speech and some things. And I went to Tiffany's, and I'm not a jewelry person, but I bought a rattle, a teething ring, and another teething ring. And they just opened the little box in the bow to check it, make sure it wasn't a bomb, and stole one of them. Didn't take the other 2. They just liked how that looked. So I guess I should be thankful they only took that. After all, they've got a stressful job. They deserve to rob me. But the reason that we have security expert Bruce Schneier on with us today is because, well, he was blocked from telling Congress what he wanted, because I guess what TSA wants, they get. Obama can launch wars without congressional approval. And he now says the Supreme Court doesn't matter. So it's kind of like the TSA tells Congress who gets to have speeches. In fact, I saw an article yesterday where Congress was trying to find out about this new NSA base in Utah, and they were told, you're not allowed to know. Really? Congress? Co-equal or above the president? I mean, we got problems here, so that's a sidebar. But TSA blocks security expert from testifying to Congress. Lawmakers slam agency for treating Americans like prisoners and cattle. The TSA ensured that a leading security expert who has been vocally critical of the agency's screening methods was barred from speaking before congressional hearing. The hearing before the House Committee on the Oversight and Government Reform was held Monday in an effort to evaluate the agency's performance and address concerns raised by lawmakers, experts in the field, and members of the public. Bruce Schneier is an internationally renowned security technologist and author, was scheduled to testify before the TSA security screening, but was formally uninvited at the last minute following a complaint by the agency. And he'll tell us what happened to him here and what he would have said to Congress that's been censored, but now here reaching 3 million people. Sir, thank you for coming on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, tell us about yourself and what happened here.
So there was a hearing on the TSA on basically whether they're worth it, whether they're effective, and this is mostly about their new measures, the full body scanners, the spot program that looks for people who are not acting right. I mean, a bunch of things. And I was one of the 4 witnesses scheduled. And at the Friday before the Monday hearing, I got a call from one of the staffers who's running the hearing asking about the lawsuit. And there's a lawsuit right now, Epic versus the TSA. I'm one of the plaintiffs, and we're trying to get the TSA to follow the law with respect to full-body scanners. It has to do with the public comment period and certain documents they have to make public. I mean, this is law, and we're just trying to get the TSA to follow it. Anyway, the TSA objected, and the excuse they used that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be sitting at the same table because I'm a part of that lawsuit. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but in any case, the people who ran the hearing decided that they wanted the TSA there, which means I was uninvited, which is, I mean, really a pity, because I would have liked to have been at the table of the TSA. I spent a lot of time criticizing them, and, you know, they have the luxury of not actually responding. I mean, they could ignore me, they could respond to pieces of me, but it would have been neat to be at a table and say, hey, answer this question. And then if they didn't, say, you didn't answer the question, and try again. I mean, that would have been sort of fun, but I didn't get to do that.
Now, they're also famous, as you know, for claiming John Hopkins says there's no radiation danger, and then the head of the radiology department goes, we never said that in our report, we said the opposite. Or they're famous for saying, we've done all the radiology testing. We've got, you know, radiation officers. You're supposed to wear a badge like somebody at a dental office or doctor's office. Turned out that was a lie. They said they'd given Congress years ago the data. That was a lie. They said they didn't save the images. That was a lie. They said that they weren't groping people, weren't strip searching old ladies. That was a lie. I mean, this is the only group I know of that's rumored to lie more than the TSA is the devil.
Well, I mean, the problem is that airports are really extra constitutional zones now. There are things that happen there that would never happen out in the real world. And, this is just one example. There's a lot of dispute about the radiation levels. There are some people that do the math and say it's okay, but that math doesn't take into account that this is all skin radiation. Once you look at that, it's not okay. The problem is we don't have the data. I mean, this isn't security data. This isn't how well the machines work to detect plastic explosives. This is safety data.
And they never release it. That's a good point you're making. So what were you going to testify to that they blocked?
Yes. I mean, if you put this exact machine in a hospital, it would be illegal because we just don't know how safe they are. So, in some ways, in this instance, I just want the TSA to do something perfectly reasonable. Release safety data, allow researchers to test them for safety before we start irradiating, millions of Americans. It just seems plausible to ask. And, in like so many things were blocked. The TSA is required by law to ask for a public comment period before deploying this technology. They didn't. We went to the courts. The court said you have to do that. They haven't. Now, just one of many things that once you get to the airport, you just don't have the rights you have as a citizen elsewhere in the country.
And now they're setting the precedent with that to expand it. TSA hardened bulletproof checkpoints, highway checkpoints, bus terminals, train stations. Now they're saying the IRS will be over it, and if you haven't paid your taxes, you won't be able to travel. This is the internal checkpoint passport that, of course, was so famous in Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia. I mean, it's like they're following an authoritarian list and checking each box off twice and taking it to the next level. Again, what were you going to say to Congress specifically, sir? Because I want people to hear that testimony.
Oh, wow. I mean, what I was hoping to do is go after them and respond to them. Because, as you're pointing out, they say a lot of things that turn out not to be true. And what I was hoping to do there is to be the fact checker. That I wouldn't have stuff prepared necessarily, that I would more respond. And when they say, the radiation is safe, I'd be able to say, well, you say that, but here's some data, and you're not letting us know. When they say the full body scanners detect plastic explosives, I'd say, well, no, they don't. Here's the data. The manufacturers say they don't. We know they don't. I mean, you're lying there. And and that's really what I wanted to do. Whether talking about the no-fly list or the shoe scanners, I mean, all of these things they do, and they make the statements, and they don't get a lot of checks on it. So I was hoping to be the fact checker. That's why I thought it would be fun, because rarely do I get to actually confront them. I mean, I can say my pieces, I can make my arguments, but they don't have to respond. And I figured with congressmen staring at them in the face, we might be able to get an actual response.
Well, I mean, if the TSA is being called before Congress to be grilled because the nation's in near revolt over their legendary abusive exploits, and then you're one of the known, admitted experts, coming in to counter them, and then they complain. What was the nature of the complaint where our godlike TSA trumps open discussion?
So this is a technicality, and it might be valid for all I know. There's a lawsuit going on, EPIC, Electronic Privacy Information Center, versus the TSA about full-body scanners. I'm one of the named plaintiffs. And what they invoked, and this might be a rule for all I know, that both sides of an ongoing legal dispute should not appear at the same table in front of a congressional hearing. So, I mean, I don't know if this is a real rule. It might be. Honestly, if I knew that, I might have dropped off the lawsuit and showed up at the hearing, because the hearing would have been more fun.
Specifically, though, I mean, you're a technology expert. You've got a long bio here. Tell folks about your website and why you were why members of Congress thought you'd be a good person, to call, because The Economist calls you a security guru.
Sure. I mean, I write about the TSA all the time. My website is Schneier.com, Schneier. At the same time this was unfolding, I was participating in an online debate at the Economist magazine website with Kip Hawley. Kip Hawley is the former head of the TSA from its inception to basically when Obama became president. And he and I were going back and forth on the TSA, and it's a fantastic debate. I really recommend people read it. I thought I did a great job. So
you're an effective nemesis to the pervert squad, and so they just don't want you on the field.
Now, I don't think they do. I'm actually pretty good. I could talk about the scanners. I can talk about the X-ray machines. I can talk about the scanning of checked luggage, of cockpit doors. I can talk about their spot program.
Yeah, do that. I mean, talk about why you say it's all security, because you coined the term security theater.
That's my term, and that's what we got a lot of here. Right? Things that look good but don't actually provide security. You know, it's interesting. For that economist debate, I pulled some research that was done on the cost of the TSA, because we never really look at it in terms of cost versus benefit. Is it worth it? And if you calculate the amount of waiting time for people flying, it's about 19.5 minutes per flyer. I mean, that's the time you get to the airport early, on average. You run the math, that's about $10 billion a year. That equals TSA's budget. If you look at the number of people who drive instead of flying to avoid the TSA, that equals about 500 automobile-related deaths per year.
Wow.
Right, so we're saying that the TSA is causing 500 fatal accidents a year. Now, that's a big number. I mean, that makes them, I'm sorry to say, more effective than the terrorists. And talking about that would have been interesting. Now, they didn't cause the deaths in the same way the terrorists do, but it's
not as scary. It's not as fun to get scared of that. But I've talked to bus company people. I know side issue. The point is they say that buses are being used a lot more. Everywhere I go now, I'm seeing a lot more buses, and everyone I talk to doesn't travel. They talk about upwards of $40 billion a year now in lost revenue. Friends I have in Europe won't come here now. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, we're known. Communist China isn't anywhere near this. It's easier to fly into North Korea than it is the U.S. now.
Oh, actually, it's not. And China's pretty bad. And
hold on. I'm sure you've been to China. I haven't. Paul Watson's married to a nice Chinese lady, and he flies to China 2 or 3 times a year. He says there's basically no security. And I talked to journalists that recently flew to North Korea, and they said basically as long as it's pre-authorized, they were just right in. And then once you go out in the countryside, they had a minder. But I'm talking about, in North Korea, they don't grab your genitals.
Well, I'd love to visit that country. I haven't. China, I have, and I've been to. I'll be in Russia in another month. We'll see how security there. Okay, just came back from Europe. They do a lot of security too. I mean, in a lot of ways.
Oh no, the Netherlands has it. England has more than the U.S. in some. But the point is that we're losing. All I know is we're losing tourism.
Yeah, and we are. A lot of people don't fly. I mean, one of the things you said is that people are up in arms over this. The thing, unfortunately, you have to realize is most people aren't. Most people don't know better. They'll say something like anything if it keeps us safer. I mean, most people believe the government when they say this is essential. I mean, I wish there was a popular revolt over the TSA. But, those of us who object are still pretty fringy. Most people just say, I guess this is what we have to do. And one of the things I like to do with my writings is to raise awareness that maybe this isn't the best way, that maybe this isn't the right thing. But, in a lot of ways, I'm still fighting an uphill battle because most people don't know enough to decide and trust the government.
Most people I talk to absolutely hate what the TSA is doing. And I talked to one of my friends that works at the airport, and he said he watched local News 8 Austin interview more than 40 people until they found one old lady that liked what they were doing to her, and they put her on the news.
Yeah, I think there is some of that. I mean, certainly, my friends, your friends are going to select this way. A lot of people are outspoken where they don't like it, but they're willing to accept it. But, go to the airport. I fly all the time, and, people aren't complaining. Now, of course, not to complain, right? Because if you complain, you're a troublemaker, and you could end up on a list. It really is a bad situation. We just don't have the rights to argue. And I think people are afraid to argue. I mean, the people who don't like it are willing to accept it. I'll complain more than most, but I know if I put up a stink at the airport, they're just going to make my day miserable.
Did you know the TSA asked for them to remove that other technologist video, a month or so ago, we had him on, where he showed how you could sneak through the scanners with explosives, and then they removed it, saying security? No, the security is showing they're a fraud, right?
Yeah, and that actually isn't even new. You know, when I blogged about that, I found a research paper from 2 years previously that talked about the same attack. I mean, it's not like hiding it is going to make it go away. I didn't know the video was removed. That's interesting. I'm pretty sure it's up in Europe somewhere. I'll go back and look around and update my blog. If
no. They took it down for a while. There was a big outrage, and then it was put back up. The point is that they did take it down for a while.
So your listeners who don't know, this is a video of someone bringing metal through a full body scanner, through both of them, through both the backscatter X-ray and through the millimeter wave. And basically, he's hiding it in an outside pocket of a sort of a swingy piece of clothing. And the way the images show up, it's hidden in the background. It actually is a serious flaw. It's pretty easy to bypass. It's been known for a few years, and yes, the TSA is trying to hide information about it. The researcher who found this reported that the TSA was threatening reporters who were covering this.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I saw the emails, and then he later actually talked to the TV reporter in Florida. They told him, we tell you do not talk to this guy.
Yeah, I mean, these are more heavy-handed tactics. But again, the way to think of airport security, the TSA, is that it's an extra constitutional organ. I mean, it's extra constitutional space, organization, that the normal rights you have don't exist.
Like a constitution-free zone. We've got one more short segment with you. I want to specifically get into the scanners in other areas and the X-rays, the bomb detectors, because from what I've read, but you know more about this than I do, a good dog detects explosives in a wider range much better than those machines, and they can do it to everybody. But a dog isn't proprietary to a company that gives lobbying money to Congress. Security expert Bruce Schneier is our guest. Okay, so you heard my question about the dogs. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but dogs profiling, but then they say, no, we won't profile somebody that actually has a criminal record. We'll just treat you all like criminals. So it's an inversion of civil rights.
So let me talk about the machines and dogs. So basically, we're trying to detect an explosive called PETN. It's got a long name. You can look it up. It's what the shoe bomber used. It's what the underwear bomber used. It's the thing that's scary. And we're worried about people bringing it in on their person because the magnetometer won't detect it. Now, full-body scanners actually won't detect PETN either. Only two things can detect it, and that's a chemical sniffer or, as you say, a dog. So what we're trying to do with the full-body scanners is to detect bulges in your clothing that could be PETN, and if one is found, then the officer will figure out what it is. So that's basically what the machines are doing. So yes, dogs would be better, but if you think about it, dogs are kind of a logistical nightmare at an airport. I don't think it's a fact that the machines are proprietary and dogs aren't. It's just that having trained animals requires a level of infrastructure that airports don't have.
Yeah, but I would rather walk by a dog, and that's all you got to do, than have somebody grab my genitals.
Well, it's not all you have to do. It's more complicated than that. I mean, I'm not convinced that dogs are a better solution than the machines. I think when you start looking at making dogs work, there's a lot of issues. But yeah, the machines don't actually detect the explosive. They detect bulges in your clothing, which then the officer clears. And if you go to the airport, this happens. They see a bulge, and the person who's looking at the images radios to the officer, says there's something in his left pocket.
The person looking at your genitals sees something that they want to look at, yeah.
Right. And then, so that is cleared. So yeah, so that's basically how those machines work. I mean, I'd love to see more dogs. I think they're a great solution. I even saw some technology that uses bees, as a different animal. Now, I don't think they work with a person, but they work with luggage and other things. That bees could also act as good chemical detectors. But there's a lot of work with using live animals, especially large mammals.
And Chertoff doesn't make money off the body scanners.
And that's the other issue, of course. There is Michael Chertoff lobbies one of the two machines authorized to sell them. And, you know, the rush to put them into place after the underwear bomber, even though the manufacturer of one of them, at least one of them, said, you know, wait a second, this wouldn't have detected the underwear bomb. Because remember, if it's not a bulge, you're not going to detect it. So if it's pounded, the explosive is pounded thin, if it's part of an article of clothing, there's a lot of ways to sneak it by.
Well, what if you had it inside your body? I mean, next they're saying they're talking about full body x-rays. I saw that in the Australian news because people might put it in artificial breasts. They might put it in their stomach.
Or put it in your anus. We saw one example of that, someone who set off a bomb against a Saudi prince a couple of years ago. Hid the bomb in his anal body cavity. So yes, I mean, this is a tactic. It's, you know, kind of an obvious one.
Well, the answer is have the pot-bellied TSA people get grandma in there and do proctology exams.
Well, you know, I mean, this seems like an endless, futile solution. I mean, I argue...
How about we just face the danger like we always did and live in a free society? Okay, I mean, if they had a plane with no security versus security, I'm getting on the one with no security.
You know, but unfortunately, the market doesn't ever. I mean, market rarely differentiates on security. Yeah, it would be interesting to have more secure airways and less secure airways, and see.
The truth is, they can't protect you. The world's not. What, terrorists are going to attack down the road? We're going to have checkpoints on the road now. I mean, it's never ending. Of course, Anwar al-Awlaki did die secretly at the Pentagon too, and the underwear bomber was put on the plane by the U.S. government. Bruce, thanks for the time. Thanks for joining us, and I'm glad you got to testify here.
Thank you.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the InfoWars store at InfoWars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe InfoWars t-shirts. We've got the incredible ProPure gravity-fed filters available at InfoWars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there. Wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens. It's all there. Infowars.com. Now, I wanted to get Bruce Schneier on because we ran an article. It was also in the Associated Press as well. TSA blocks security expert from testifying to Congress. Lawmakers slam agency for treating Americans like prisoners and cattle. We've now in the last week seen the ad they ran looking for imperious people. That means imperial, bossy, overbearing, dominant. And we've also, in the last week, had TSA caught running sex rings, child porn, rapes. And I saw a report that hundreds of people, over 200 people, have their bags robbed per week at JFK. Well, my daughter's 7 now, and she was newborn. I had to go to New York to do a speech and some things. And I went to Tiffany's, and I'm not a jewelry person, but I bought a rattle, a teething ring, and another teething ring. And they just opened the little box in the bow to check it, make sure it wasn't a bomb, and stole one of them. Didn't take the other 2. They just liked how that looked. So I guess I should be thankful they only took that. After all, they've got a stressful job. They deserve to rob me. But the reason that we have security expert Bruce Schneier on with us today is because, well, he was blocked from telling Congress what he wanted, because I guess what TSA wants, they get. Obama can launch wars without congressional approval. And he now says the Supreme Court doesn't matter. So it's kind of like the TSA tells Congress who gets to have speeches. In fact, I saw an article yesterday where Congress was trying to find out about this new NSA base in Utah, and they were told, you're not allowed to know. Really? Congress? Co-equal or above the president? I mean, we got problems here, so that's a sidebar. But TSA blocks security expert from testifying to Congress. Lawmakers slam agency for treating Americans like prisoners and cattle. The TSA ensured that a leading security expert who has been vocally critical of the agency's screening methods was barred from speaking before congressional hearing. The hearing before the House Committee on the Oversight and Government Reform was held Monday in an effort to evaluate the agency's performance and address concerns raised by lawmakers, experts in the field, and members of the public. Bruce Schneier is an internationally renowned security technologist and author, was scheduled